I wanted to welcome you today on this event. I would like to tell you something about my way of my perspective of future, basically. So first, I'd like to intrigue you with a question. Have you ever wondered how come you just love school on the very first day, but then mysteriously you come to hate it a mere year later? You systematically worry whether your homework is correct, whether you passed the 10th test this week and it's been only Thursday. But still, it all happens not systematically enough for you to actually start studying systematically. Unless by systematically, you mean that first you'll do all the unimportant chores and then a day before the actual exam you start studying. You long for the graduation day, hoping that the nightmare of your schooling will finally be over. And then it takes just your first job for you to realize that nothing has changed. You still wake up on an alarm clock, you set it to snooze 12 times before you actually head for work, where you just spend your day doing something you don't care about and just watching your life pass you by. You didn't expect any changes, did you? Well, if you keep on doing what you've always done, you will always get what you've always got. So can you actually imagine what would happen if we change what we keep on doing in education? Can you imagine that you would enthusiastically wake up in the morning just to go to school and start learning? Can you imagine landing a job that would make you the most influential person in the whole wide world? Let's see if you recognize some of these people. These are Google founders, Larry Page and Sergey Brin. Amazon's founder, Jeff Bezos. Will Wright, a video game pioneer. Anybody familiar with the name The Smiths? The Sims? Wikipedia founder, Jimmy Wales. Julia Child, probably the most creative cook ever. Puff Diddy, a rapper. Taylor Swift, a singer. And a writer, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. What those people have in common, there are a lot of things. They are among the most influential people in the world. The most famous, probably. I would say that they're probably most creative people in the world. And probably they are the wealthiest people in the world. And what they all have in common is that they all publicly contribute their success to their early years in the Montessori schools. So now meet the woman behind the Montessori schools. Maria Montessori was one of the very first female doctors in Italy. She had the courage to start changing the educational system. What she observed was not what she expected. She didn't see teachers following children. Instead, she saw curriculums being taught to children. When she observed children in their natural environment, she noticed the sensitive periods. Sensitive periods may also be called windows of opportunity. These are periods of intense interest and engagement in certain kinds of activities. You might also define a sensitive period as a time when a brain is finally ready for a new development. So right now I would like to show you what the real Montessori environment looks like with the work of the children. Ideally, I would have all of you go and visit a school, but at that time they're all pretty much closed. So we'll just have to do with the film. So I'll now ask you a question. How many teachers have you seen in that short film? None. It's because we do not need the teachers to guide our learning process. These are the questions that Maria Montessori asked herself. What if instead of imposing our lessons upon children, we would actually let them be the innovators, let them be those who guide their own learning process? What if instead of giving them shelves full of useless toys, we would offer them an environment that would quench their thirst for knowledge? What if instead of giving them A's or B's or golden stars or smiley faces, we would actually let them be the judges of their own work and their own effort? You would say that this is impossible, but what you've witnessed is real. Children learn from one another, and this is one of the amazing benefits of the Montessori method, because the social behavior is added by the inclusion of 3 different ages in a class. So you do not get a class of the people all born in the same year. You get a class full of children from 3 to 6. In general, the older children would serve as role models for their younger companions. They would take on leadership role as they help others. They may also give lessons to younger children on the use of some of the materials. Then, when they present, they also gain a deeper understanding of the lesson, of their work itself. This is what happens when you teach something to somebody else. Then we've got the youngest children. Those are only beginning, so they will engage in their activities, but they will also keep constantly observing the older students at work, so that when their time comes, they will be ready because they have already seen it at work. And then we've got children in the middle age range. Those will sometimes receive help and will sometimes give help to others. This, in turn, gives them a possibility to develop the flexibility in their interactions with others. Another aspect that I would like to highlight here is that we do not have shelves full of those useless toys. Instead of that, we get shelves full of materials. Materials that are the result of more than 100 years of experimenting and observing what materials and activities should be offered to children at what age and in what sequence to respond to their natural need, which will be following the sensitive periods that I mentioned before. Following a sensitive period is simply responding to the inner need of the child to let them learn, grow, and develop. Another beautiful aspect of the Montessori method is that it does not offer the same curriculum to all the children at the same time in the class. What it does is that it offers to satisfy an individual child's interest in a specific subject matter at the time and pace chosen by the student. Can you recall the little girl who was setting the yellow frames on the table and they kept on falling? Well, we only got a short part of it here, but she was constantly failing for about 20 minutes. And even though it was happening to her, she would always get out of this chair, get up and pick it up and put it in the end. And then finally, after about a quarter or so, she realized that she shouldn't push it further if she does not want to pick it up from the floor. Isn't it beautiful that we allow for the students to have this aha moment for themselves instead of discovering it for them? Another aspect, a wonderful aspect of the Montessori method, is that it offers respect to all students. And the matter of that respect is that we do not use 45-minute lessons. Why should we? Maria Montessori, through her careful scientific observation, notice that the concentration of a child lasts for about 3 hours. That's as much time as a child needs in order to develop a full concentration that would lead to meaningful work and to their own discoveries. Can you imagine what happens if we just cut it into 45 minutes? The 3-hour work cycle for the children is what works best in the environment because we are providing for their needs. Now, with every human born, there's always a hope. There is always a hope of a new beginning, of a new life, of a different way. And there is always the possibility of success. Education is where I see the possibility of success for everyone. Of course, if we give to students what we think that is enough or is possible for them to understand, they will learn, but they will not take pleasure in the process. If, however, we offer them more, we will open a new source of opportunities, their hearts and minds. And this is the key to changing the world. Now, the question that would inevitably follow would be, what would be your innovation? How will you impact the world? What will you change to make it a better place? When almost a decade ago, I made my decision, I decided to bring in the Montessori method to the local environment and started disseminating the idea among a modest number of parents. I started by simply changing the little people's education. Gradually, I learned that future is not something you head for. This is something you have to create. Now, this is how I create future every day now. One child, one little heart at a time, thanks to Maria Montessori and her amazing method of education. Thank you.